At the beginning of every journey, there is a quiet moment when the world has not yet taken shape, when the sun has not yet declared its intention to rise, and the mind hovers between what it knows and what it longs to remember. In this gentle space, daily Dharma listening begins its offering, a sanctuary of reflection woven with ancient strands of Buddhist teachings and modern stories of the human heart. As the sound of your breath settles, allow this first chapter to be a soft awakening, a calm hand resting on your shoulder, guiding you toward a deeper understanding of how to stay calm and positive even when life presses upon you with uncertainty. If you feel inspired by this journey, let this be a reminder that your support through subscribing, liking, and sharing helps this space continue bringing light to others searching for peace. Now let us walk together. The world today moves with a relentless speed, as though every hour must be filled, every moment must be optimized, every breath must justify its existence. Yet the ancient masters spoke differently. They taught that life is not a race to be outrun but a river to be observed, a slow-moving current where one learns to see clearly only after choosing to stop struggling. In the old monasteries, where lanterns flickered against stone walls, teachers would often ask a simple question: what is the nature of your mind? And the student, overwhelmed, would struggle to answer, because the mind is both the vessel and the storm. It creates the same chaos it wishes to escape, and still it yearns for tranquility. This yearning is what brings you here. This longing is the beginning of wisdom. When people first approach Buddhism for beginners, they often hope for immediate calm, imagining enlightenment as a bright flash that dissolves all difficulty. Yet true Buddhist wisdom rarely appears in dramatic revelation. Instead, it arrives like a candle flame in an empty room, small but unwavering, illuminating just enough space for you to take the next step. You learn that to find peace in chaos is not to banish the chaos outside but to soften the turbulence within. The world will continue to be itself, endlessly shifting, endlessly demanding, endlessly noisy. But you can learn to meet it differently, with a steadiness born from awareness rather than fear. Imagine you are walking through a crowded city, surrounded by conversations you are not part of, decisions you have no control over, and energies that pull your attention in many directions at once. A modern life full of responsibilities, relationships, expectations, and hidden anxieties. You feel the pressure building like a storm behind your ribs. It is in that moment that you may remember one of the simplest yet most transformative Buddhist lessons for anxiety: return to your breath. Not to escape what overwhelms you, but to become clearly aware of it. Notice the shape of your discomfort. Observe the pattern of your thoughts as if they were waves rising and falling. When you do this, even for a short moment, you interrupt the cycle of reactivity and create a subtle space where choice becomes possible. To live without fear does not mean becoming invincible. It means understanding the nature of fear itself. Fear is not a punishment, nor is it a sign of weakness. It is simply a signal arising from the mind, shaped by memory, by expectation, by our longing for certainty in a world that refuses to be held still. When the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree in the quiet hours of the night, fear came to him in many forms. But he remained unmoving, not because he was immune to fear, but because he saw fear clearly and understood its illusion. In your own life, you can begin to transform your mind in the same way, by recognizing when fear disguises itself as urgency, as anger, as comparison, or as self-doubt. There is a story of a young monk who struggled with restlessness. Every time he sat in meditation, thoughts rushed at him like a river bursting over its banks. He believed he was failing, that meditation should be an escape from thinking. But when he approached his teacher, the teacher simply smiled and said, "You do not need to stop the river." You only need to stop stepping into it. This is one of the most practical lessons you can bring into everyday life. You cannot stop people from misunderstanding you, nor can you stop unexpected challenges from appearing. But you can protect your energy by choosing not to involve yourself in every ripple of disturbance that arises. In the quiet of evening, when the sky softens into pastel shades and the noise of the day begins to slow, you may find yourself reflecting on the choices you made, the emotions you carried, the words you wished you had spoken differently. This is where Buddhist reminders when you feel lost become invaluable. They tell you that it is never too late to start again, never too late to return to the present moment as if it were home. The present moment is the only place where life unfolds. It is the only point where transformation is possible. And as you learn to inhabit it more fully, the weight of regret begins to lighten, replaced by a subtle clarity that gently guides you forward. Modern life often encourages us to hide our struggles, to maintain a polished facade of confidence, productivity, and emotional control. But deep within, many carry unspoken burdens, quiet fears, unresolved traumas, and moments of uncertainty that linger like shadows. Buddhist teachings do not ask you to pretend these shadows do not exist. Instead, they invite you to bring compassionate awareness to them. To sit with your unease, not as an enemy but as a messenger. What is it trying to show you? What truth have you avoided? What longing have you neglected? When you listen deeply, the answers often rise with surprising gentleness. You may notice that when you rush through life, you miss details, the shape of a leaf turning in the wind, the warmth in someone's voice, the feeling of sunlight drifting across your skin. These small moments, insignificant as they may seem, are often the doorway to awakening. They remind you that peace is not something to be found in the distant future but something that can be felt right now, in the softness of this breath, in the stillness of this pause, in the awareness of your own presence. And so this first chapter closes like a lantern carried carefully through the night, its glow steady, its warmth subtle but unmistakable. You have begun a journey toward understanding, toward inner clarity, toward the quiet strength that arises when you stop trying to control everything and start paying attention. Let this be the beginning of a gentle unfolding, a practice of returning to yourself with patience. Let it be a reminder that every step taken with awareness is a step toward freedom, a step toward reclaiming the peace that has always belonged to you. If this opening resonates with your heart, allow yourself to support daily Dharma listening by subscribing, liking, or sharing, so that more people wandering in silence may find their way here. And as you move into the next part of this series, carry with you the truth that transformation begins not with grand gestures, but with the simple, courageous act of noticing the present moment and choosing to awaken within it. Part 2. The quiet strength of returning to yourself. There comes a moment in every seeker's path when the world feels unbearably heavy, when the noise of life seems to drown out the inner voice you once trusted, when the responsibilities of the modern world pull you in so many directions that you no longer know which direction is truly yours. In such moments, the ancient Buddhist teachings offer a gentle hand, not to pull you away from life, but to guide you back into it with clearer eyes and a calmer heart. This second chapter continues the slow, meditative unfolding of wisdom, offering the quiet strength of returning to yourself even when the world demands everything from you. It is said in the old scriptures that the mind, when left unattended, becomes like a wild elephant, strong but easily frightened, powerful but quick to panic. It reacts to every sound, every thought, every shift in circumstance, and its restlessness spills into your speech, your actions, your choices. But when the mind is trained with patience, with awareness, with gentle discipline, that same wild energy transforms into clarity and unwavering presence. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, that the suffering you experience does not come from the world itself but from the ways you interpret it, resist it, or cling to it. To transform your mind is to transform the world you experience. Picture yourself waking in the early morning, before the world has fully opened its eyes. There is a softness in this hour, a stillness that feels almost sacred. Yet even in this calm setting, your mind may begin racing through tasks, worries, and unresolved conversations. It is here that Buddhism for beginners begins, not with complex philosophy but with a simple invitation: notice. Notice your breath, the way it arrives without effort. Notice the tension in your shoulders, the lingering emotion in your chest, the subtle pressure behind your thoughts. Notice without judgment, without rushing to fix or escape anything. This noticing is the beginning of returning to yourself. When someone asks how to stay calm and positive in the face of difficulty, the old masters would often smile, because the answer is not a trick, nor a secret technique, but a gentle shift in relationship. You cannot stop the waves of life from rising, but you can learn to stop standing in the place where they crash hardest. You can step back, observe the pattern, and let the water move without dragging you under. This shift does not come instantly. It arrives slowly, like dawn spreading across a dark sky, illuminating one small corner at a time until the whole landscape becomes visible. In your daily life, this might look like pausing before responding to someone's anger, taking a breath before fueling your own frustration, or recognizing the moment when your anxiety begins tightening around your chest and offering yourself compassion instead of criticism. There is a story told of a wandering monk who traveled across mountains carrying nothing but a small bowl and a thin robe. One evening, he arrived at a river where the current was strong and cold, and he hesitated. A local villager saw him and said, "The river is dangerous at night. Wait until morning." But the monk simply looked at the water, breathed deeply, and stepped in. When he reached the other side, the villager asked how he had crossed so swiftly. The monk replied, "I did not try to fight the river. I simply flowed with it." This is the essence of finding peace in chaos. You do not conquer life by force. You learn to move with it, to adapt without losing yourself, to soften your resistance so suffering has less to cling to. In moments of fear, whether fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, fear of loss, or fear of not being enough, you may feel small and powerless. Yet Buddhist teachings remind you that fear is not the enemy. Fear is a doorway. When you step through it with awareness, you discover it leads not into darkness but into truth. Fear shows you what you have not yet accepted. Fear shows you where you cling too tightly. Fear reveals the illusions you mistake for reality. To live without fear is not to feel fearless, but to allow fear to arise without letting it dictate your life. It is the courage to breathe through discomfort, to see clearly even when emotions rise like storms. When anxiety tightens your world until it feels too small to breathe inside, remember this gentle teaching: your thoughts are not commands. They are clouds passing through the open sky of your awareness. Some clouds are dark, heavy with rain, but they do not define the sky. The sky remains vast and unbroken no matter how many storms arise within it. Buddhist lessons for anxiety emphasize this truth again and again. When you feel overwhelmed, you can sit quietly, place your attention on the rise and fall of your breath, and picture your mind like that open sky. Allow your thoughts to move without following them. Allow emotions to arise without labeling them. In this spaciousness, clarity returns. There are people you meet who drain your energy simply by their presence. There are situations that leave you feeling scattered or exhausted. In such moments, the phrase "protect your energy" is not merely a modern sentiment but an ancient reminder. The Buddha taught that you must be mindful of the company you keep, the conversations you entertain, and the environments you willingly enter. Protecting your energy does not mean closing your heart. It means choosing where your presence flows. It means giving yourself permission to step back from negativity, to set boundaries without guilt, and to honor your inner balance as a sacred responsibility. As you walk through this world, you will sometimes feel directionless, unsure of what comes next, unsure of who you are becoming. These moments of confusion are not failures but invitations. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to turn inward, to sit with the discomfort rather than running from it, to trust that even in uncertainty, there is wisdom unfolding beneath the surface. Being lost is not the absence of direction. It is the beginning of finding a deeper one. When you feel lost, you return to your breath, to your senses, to the ground beneath your feet. You reconnect with the part of yourself that is not confused, the quiet awareness that observes everything with calm acceptance. In the stillness of night, when the world quiets and you can finally hear the hum of your own thoughts, reflect gently on the question, what am I holding that no longer serves me? It may be resentment, a memory of being wronged, a fear of disappointing others, or an expectation of how life should unfold. These burdens weave themselves into your thoughts, shaping your perception more than you realize. Through meditation, reflection, and small acts of honesty, you begin to loosen your grip. Little by little, you create space inside yourself where ease can enter, where peace can breathe, where the mind can settle like a leaf resting on still water. This chapter, like a stream flowing through shaded forest, invites you to soften the edges of your life. It reminds you that peace is not found in perfection but in presence. It teaches you that transformation does not always arrive with thunder but more often with the quiet decision to pay attention. And as you continue this journey, you will see that every breath is a teacher, every challenge is a mirror, every moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. Part 3. The stillness that reveals who you are. There is a certain kind of silence that does not come from the absence of sound but from the settling of the mind, a deep inward quiet that emerges only when you stop running from yourself. This chapter is an invitation to enter that silence, not as an escape but as a mirror, a space where the busy layers of identity gently peel away and something more authentic begins to surface. In the ancient monasteries, monks spent years learning how to sit with themselves, learning to listen not to their thoughts but to the subtle truth beneath them. They often said that the most profound revelations arrive not in the moments of intense questioning but in the moments when questioning stops and awareness simply breathes. Modern life, however, rarely gives you a moment to pause. The noise of ambition, pressure, comparison, and expectation fills every corner of the mind. You may find yourself constantly reacting to the world around you, shaping your emotions according to the moods of others, adjusting your identity to fit circumstances that do not reflect your true self. You may feel the weight of anxiety pressing against your chest, not because life is inherently chaotic but because the mind has forgotten how to rest. And yet, within you exists a stillness as ancient as the mountains, a quiet space where Buddhist teachings echo like gentle footsteps guiding you back to your center. In Buddhist wisdom, the mind is compared to a pond. When disturbed, the water becomes cloudy and the bottom cannot be seen. But if left undisturbed, the silt slowly settles and the water becomes clear again, revealing the reflection of the sky above and the stones beneath. The same is true of your consciousness. When you constantly react, constantly analyze, constantly try to control the world, the mind becomes stirred with doubt and fear. But when you sit quietly, allowing thoughts to rise and fall without interference, clarity emerges naturally. You begin to see yourself honestly, without the distortions created by stress or expectation. Imagine sitting alone in your room, the soft light of morning filtering through the window, casting gentle shadows across the floor. You breathe once, slowly, and your awareness begins to settle. A thought arises about something you must do today. You acknowledge it, then let it pass. Another thought arrives, perhaps about a past mistake, a conversation that still weighs on your heart. Again you acknowledge it, and again you let it drift away. Thought after thought comes and goes, like leaves falling into a stream, carried gently by the current. As the flow continues, you begin to feel something shift within you. The thoughts no longer feel heavy. They no longer feel threatening. You realize they are not you. They are simply movements of the mind, temporary, fleeting, without inherent power unless you give them power. This understanding is one of the quiet foundations of Buddhism for beginners. The mind is not your enemy, but it is not your identity either. You are the awareness that notices the thoughts, the presence that observes without becoming entangled. When you experience anxiety or fear, the mind moves rapidly, trying to protect you from imagined dangers, predicting future outcomes, analyzing every possible scenario. But the awareness beneath your thoughts remains steady. When you rest in that awareness, you begin to find peace in chaos, not because chaos disappears but because your relationship with it changes. There is a story of a young woman who approached a monk, troubled by the constant turbulence within her. She said that her mind felt like a storm she could never escape. The monk listened quietly and then handed her a cup of tea. He told her to watch the steam rising from the surface. She noticed that although the steam moved quickly, swirling and dissolving into the air, the cup remained still. The monk said, "Your mind is the steam, but you are the cup." This simple teaching stayed with her, and eventually she began to experience life with greater ease, understanding that her thoughts could move rapidly without disturbing her deeper presence. When you practice noticing your thoughts without grasping them, you begin to transform your mind in subtle but powerful ways. You learn not to live without fear, but to stop letting fear be the author of your decisions. You learn not to silence anxiety by force, but to invite it into awareness so it can soften naturally. You learn not to chase happiness tirelessly, but to uncover the quiet contentment that arises when the mind becomes less entangled with its own illusions. Buddhist lessons for anxiety emphasize the importance of this gentle attention, this willingness to sit with discomfort without allowing it to define you. In daily life, you may find yourself drained by interactions or situations that pull your emotional energy in many directions. You may feel responsible for other people's moods or overwhelmed by the expectations placed upon you. In such moments, the ancient practice of protecting your energy becomes essential. Protecting your energy is not about building walls or withdrawing from the world. It is about choosing where your attention flows. Every thought, every conversation, every moment of worry consumes energy. When you train your awareness to remain steady, you no longer scatter yourself into every situation that arises. You learn to stay grounded, centered, aware of your intentions, aware of what strengthens you and what weakens you. Sometimes you may feel lost not because you lack direction, but because you have been moving too quickly to notice the signs guiding you toward the path meant for you. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to slow down, to sit in stillness, to allow clarity to rise without force. Being lost is not a failure. It is a state of openness. When the familiar dissolves, space emerges for something new to grow. When you feel lost, it is often because your old identity no longer fits, and your new identity has not yet taken shape. In this transitional space, awareness becomes your anchor. Consider the moments when you felt deeply at peace. Perhaps it was during a walk at dusk, when the sky shifted from gold to blue, or while sitting near a window listening to the sound of rain. In those moments, you were not trying to become someone. You were simply present. This presence is the essence of meditation, the heart of Buddhist teachings. When you allow yourself to be fully here, fully aware, the mind softens, the breath slows, and a profound sense of belonging arises from within. You realize that peace has never been something you had to earn. It has always been available, hidden beneath the noise of your mind. This chapter invites you to cultivate that stillness deliberately, not just in long moments of meditation but in the small spaces between your daily actions. When you pour tea, notice the warmth rising from the cup. When you open a door, feel the texture of the handle against your hand. When you speak with someone, listen fully, not preparing your response but receiving their presence. These simple acts return you to yourself again and again, grounding you in the quiet awareness that reveals who you truly are beneath the surface of thought. As you continue this path, remember that awakening is not a destination. It is a continual returning, a continual recognizing of the stillness that has always been within you. Each breath is a step, each moment of awareness a gentle unfolding of truth. And in this unfolding, you will find that the more deeply you know yourself, the more easily you move through the world, calm, centered, and free. Part 4. The art of letting life flow without resistance. There is a subtle wisdom that reveals itself only when the mind stops trying to force its way through life, when it stops gripping every outcome, every story, every emotion as though losing control would mean losing everything. This chapter explores the art of letting life flow without resistance, a lesson woven through countless Buddhist teachings and whispered through the old monasteries where monks learned to walk with the world rather than against it. In the quiet hills of ancient Asia, the masters often stood before flowing rivers to teach their students. They would point at the water and say, "Notice that it moves around every obstacle without anger. Notice that the current continues, not by fighting, but by yielding." In this simple observation lies a profound truth. Resistance is the source of suffering, not the events we resist. Modern life has taught you to tighten your grip. You try to control your future, your relationships, your image, your emotions, even the world outside you. The mind, conditioned by fear and uncertainty, constantly seeks to predict what will happen and protect itself from anything unexpected. And yet, this effort exhausts the spirit. You may feel a constant tension in your chest or stomach, as though bracing for impact. You may feel tired even after sleeping, burdened even without a clear cause. This heaviness arises when the mind fights life instead of listening to it. In contrast, when you learn to soften your hold on how things must be, something remarkable happens. Space opens. Breath deepens. Awareness expands. And in that space, the natural rhythm of life becomes clear. There is a story of a wise monk who was once asked why he seemed unbothered by change. His disciple said, "Master, everything in this world rises and falls, grows and decays. How do you remain so calm?" The monk smiled and replied, "I do not cling to the rising, and I do not push away the falling. I watch the seasons of life with the same acceptance I give to the seasons of nature." This acceptance is not resignation, it is clarity. When you accept that life moves in cycles, you no longer panic at endings or cling desperately to beginnings. You begin to find peace in chaos because you understand that chaos itself is part of the order of existence. One of the foundational insights of Buddhist wisdom is the truth of impermanence. Everything you love, everything you fear, everything you think defines you is in constant motion. Feelings come and go like winds across the sky. Thoughts arise and dissolve like clouds drifting through open space. Even your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are shifts with time. When you resist this natural flow, suffering arises. When you allow yourself to move with it, life becomes infinitely lighter. Letting go does not mean abandoning what matters. It means releasing the illusion that you can freeze reality into a fixed form. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you squeeze too tightly, it slips through your fingers. If you open your palm, the sand rests gently without effort. This is how the mind must learn to hold life. In your daily routines, you may find yourself gripping situations with fear, the fear of losing someone, the fear of failing, the fear of being judged, the fear of uncertainty. These fears cloud your perception, making each moment heavier than it needs to be. But when you soften your grip, when you allow each experience to unfold without forcing a certain outcome, the heart becomes calm. You begin to live without fear, not because life is suddenly predictable, but because your relationship with uncertainty has transformed. Buddhism for beginners often starts with the practice of awareness, teaching that suffering does not arise from pain itself but from the mental narrative surrounding it. When you experience a setback, the mind immediately constructs a story: what this means about you, what could go wrong next, how others might see you. This story is far heavier than the experience itself. When you sit with awareness, however, you begin to see through this illusion. You notice that the discomfort in your body or mind is simply a sensation, a movement, a passing cloud. You notice that anxiety, too, is not an enemy but a temporary visitor, a message from within asking to be understood. Buddhist lessons for anxiety encourage you to remain present, to breathe into your discomfort, to observe your experience without becoming trapped in it. In doing so, you learn to transform your mind rather than being controlled by it. There is a moment each day when the world feels overwhelming. Perhaps it is during a conversation where emotions run high, or when responsibilities pile up faster than you can manage, or when loneliness creeps silently into your heart. In such moments, the instinct is to push back, to resist, to fight the experience with thoughts like "this shouldn't be happening" or "why is everything so difficult?" But what if, instead, you paused? What if you took a slow breath and allowed yourself to feel exactly what was present without trying to change it? This simple act of acceptance can soften the most intense storms. It brings you back to yourself. It protects your energy not by blocking the world out, but by grounding you deeply within your inner stability. There is another ancient story of a master known for his unshakable calm. One evening, a villager accused him of wrongdoing, shouting angrily and insisting that the master was at fault. The master listened quietly. When the villager finished, the master bowed gently and replied, "If this anger belongs to me, I will examine it with care. If it does not belong to me, I return it to you." The villager, startled, fell silent. In this exchange lies a profound reminder: not everything that approaches you must be carried. When you learn this, you move through the world with lightness. You stop absorbing negativity that does not belong to you. You protect your energy by choosing what enters your heart. When you feel lost in life, remember that being lost is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are moving into unfamiliar territory, growing beyond the boundaries of who you once were. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to see confusion as an opportunity for rediscovery. When you do not know where you are going, the mind becomes more attentive. It begins to explore rather than assume. It listens more carefully. In this openness, clarity slowly appears, not as a loud proclamation but as a gentle knowing that rises from within. Take a moment to imagine yourself sitting beside a wide river at dusk. The water reflects the fading light, shimmering softly as it moves. You watch leaves drift downstream, carried effortlessly by the current. You notice that the river never clings to anything, not the rocks, not the fallen branches, not the passing leaves. It simply carries everything with the same gentle grace. This image becomes a reminder for your own life. You, too, can learn to flow. You can learn to release what no longer belongs in your hands. You can learn to trust that moving forward does not require force, only awareness and steady presence. As you continue deepening your practice, you will begin to understand that letting go is not a single moment but a lifelong unfolding. You will let go of the need to win arguments. You will let go of the need to be perfect. You will let go of the belief that your worth depends on what others think of you. You will let go of the stories you have carried about your past, the fears that have shaped your identity, the expectations that have weighed on your shoulders. Each release creates space. In that space, peace enters naturally. The more you release, the more you discover who you truly are beneath the layers of fear and resistance. This chapter invites you to soften, to breathe, to trust that life, when met with clarity and acceptance, reveals its own rhythm. You are not meant to force your way through existence. You are meant to walk gently, to observe, to respond without aggression, to flow without losing yourself. And as you learn the art of letting life move where it must, you will find that peace is not something you chase. It is something that arises naturally when you stop resisting the truth of the present moment. Part 5. The path of inner stability when the world trembles. In every era of human existence, there have been moments when the ground beneath one's feet feels uncertain, when life shifts suddenly and familiar structures no longer offer the same comfort they once did. In such times, the teachings of Buddhism rise not as ancient relics but as living guidance, lighting a steady path through the tremors of existence. This chapter invites you to explore the nature of inner stability, a quality cultivated not through external security but through deep awareness, acceptance, and the quiet strength of returning again and again to the breath. And as this is one of the chapters that calls for a gentle reminder, let it be said with sincerity that if these teachings nourish your heart, you may support this journey by subscribing, liking, or sharing, so others too may find peace in chaos. The Buddha spoke often of the mind as a forest filled with both sunlight and shadow, where clarity and confusion walk hand in hand. He taught that the world itself is not unstable. Rather, our perception of it becomes unstable when we attach too tightly to expectations of how things should unfold. When the mind insists on certainty in a reality built on impermanence, fear is born. When the heart clings to the illusion of control, suffering takes root. But when we soften our grip and allow life to shift as it must, we discover a quiet center within ourselves, a groundedness that cannot be shaken by external change. This is the essence of learning how to stay calm and positive, not by pretending the world is gentle, but by cultivating a mind that remains gentle even when the world is harsh. Picture yourself standing in a field as a storm approaches. The wind gathers strength, bending the tall grasses. The sky darkens. The rain threatens to fall. You cannot stop the storm from coming, but you can choose how you stand within it. If you face the wind with rigid defiance, you will be pushed over. If you move with fear and frantic motion, the storm will feel twice as strong. But if you anchor your feet, relax your body, breathe deeply, and accept that this too is a passing moment in nature's endless cycle, something shifts. The storm is still there, but your relationship with it has changed. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Suffering is not in the storm but in the resistance to it. In the modern world, storms take many forms: financial uncertainty, personal conflict, health concerns, emotional turbulence, the quiet ache of loneliness, or the overwhelming pace of responsibilities. You may feel tension rising each morning as you prepare to face another day filled with expectations. You may feel anxious before conversations that hold emotional weight. You may find yourself carrying invisible burdens that no one else can see. These pressures accumulate like rain clouds gathering overhead. And yet, even here, the ancient teachings offer a simple but profound reminder: return to your breath. The breath anchors you to the present moment, pulling you gently away from ruminations of the past or projections of the future. When you return to the breath, even for a single cycle of inhalation and exhalation, the mind begins to settle. The body softens. The heart remembers its own strength. This is the beginning of transformation. For many people seeking Buddhism for beginners, the journey begins with meditation. But meditation is not merely sitting in silence. It is learning to observe the movement of the mind without becoming entangled in it. When thoughts of fear or doubt arise, you observe them as you would watch a leaf drifting across a pond. You do not chase them. You do not resist them. You simply notice them and allow them to pass. Over time, this observation becomes a powerful tool for navigating anxiety. When the mind races, you no longer chase after every thought. When fear arises, you no longer assume it is telling the truth. When tension builds, you no longer collapse beneath its weight. Instead, you meet each moment with awareness, transforming your mind step by step, breath by breath. There is a story of an old master whose students marveled at his serenity. One day, a young student asked how he remained peaceful even when confronted with anger or chaos. The master walked to a nearby well, pulled up a bucket of water, and stirred it vigorously. The water became cloudy, filled with swirling sediment. The master said, "When your mind is like this water, shaken by emotion, you cannot see clearly. But watch." He set the bucket down. Slowly, the sediment settled, and the water became clear again. "This," he said, "is what happens when you stop reacting. Clarity comes naturally. The world itself may be in constant motion, but the mind can learn to remain still." Inner stability is not the absence of emotion. It is the understanding that emotions are passing events, not permanent realities. When anger arises, you observe its heat without allowing it to burn your actions. When sadness appears, you honor its message without drowning in it. When fear tightens your chest, you breathe into the tension and let the body soften. Protecting your energy means becoming aware of what drains your spirit and choosing not to surrender your peace unnecessarily. You do not need to absorb every emotion around you. You do not need to resolve every conflict. You do not need to carry the world on your shoulders. Boundaries rooted in compassion help maintain equilibrium, not walls of avoidance, but gates of mindfulness, where you decide what enters your inner world. The experience of feeling lost is a universal part of human existence. In such moments, the mind searches desperately for direction, believing something is wrong simply because clarity is absent. But Buddhist reminders when you feel lost teach a different perspective. Being lost is not a problem, it is a transition. A seed buried in darkness is not lost, it is becoming. A traveler in unfamiliar land is not lost, they are discovering. A heart questioning its path is not lost, it is awakening. When you admit that you do not know the way, space opens for insight to arise. When you stop demanding instant answers, wisdom begins to surface naturally. Stillness once again becomes your guide. Imagine walking through a dense forest at twilight. The path is unclear. Shadows stretch between the trees. Ahead, you cannot see far. But beneath your feet, the ground is solid. With each step, you feel the earth supporting your weight. You cannot see the entire path, but you can trust the step in front of you. This is how inner stability is built, not through predicting the future, but through steady presence right now. Each conscious breath strengthens your roots. Each mindful moment becomes a stepping stone. Each pause before reacting creates space for clarity. As you cultivate this awareness, life begins to flow differently. You may notice that conversations feel lighter because you are listening rather than defending. You may find that challenges feel less threatening because you no longer amplify them with fear-driven thoughts. You may realize that you need far less than you once believed to feel content. The world still trembles. Situations still shift. But within you, something becomes deeply grounded, like an ancient tree whose roots reach far beneath the surface. Storms may bend its branches, but they cannot uproot it. This chapter closes with a reminder that inner stability is not a fixed state but a living practice. Some days you will feel deeply grounded. Other days you will feel shaken. Both are part of the journey. What matters is your willingness to return, again and again, to awareness, to breath, to presence. And if this journey of reflection resonates with your heart, you may gently support this space by subscribing, liking, or sharing, helping others who seek to find peace in a trembling world. Part 6. The gentle courage of embracing impermanence. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world has not yet fully awakened and the first hints of light touch the edges of the sky, there is a subtle stillness that mirrors the truth at the heart of all Buddhist teachings: everything is impermanent. This truth is not meant to be feared, it is meant to liberate. Yet for many people, impermanence is the very thing that causes anxiety. The thought that everything will change, that nothing can be held forever, often brings a sense of unease. But if you look deeply, you will see that impermanence is the very condition that allows growth, healing, transformation, and renewal. Without impermanence, there would be no evolution of the soul, no possibility of awakening. This chapter explores the gentle courage required to embrace impermanence, a courage that does not roar but whispers steadily in the background of your life, guiding you toward acceptance, clarity, and inner peace. In Buddhism for beginners, the lesson of impermanence is one of the first insights introduced, because it shapes every other aspect of the path. To understand impermanence is to understand the nature of suffering, the roots of attachment, and the freedom that arises when one stops clinging to the fleeting waves of existence. Imagine you are holding a delicate flower in your hand. Its beauty captivates you, its fragrance softens your breath, and its vibrant colors awaken a sense of tenderness in your heart. Yet within a few days, its petals begin to wilt. The colors fade. The fragrance slowly disappears. If you cling to the idea that the flower must remain forever as it is, you suffer. But if you appreciate its beauty fully in the moment, without expecting it to stay the same, you feel gratitude instead of sorrow. This is the shift that Buddhist wisdom invites you to make in every aspect of your life, from grasping to appreciating, from clinging to receiving, from fear to openness. One of the reasons people struggle to find peace in chaos is that they unconsciously try to freeze moments, relationships, or identities into fixed forms. You may cling to a version of yourself that no longer reflects who you are becoming. You may hold on to a relationship that has outgrown its original shape. You may resist life transitions because they threaten the story you built in your mind. This resistance creates a deep inner tension, a conflict between reality and expectation. But when you acknowledge impermanence, not intellectually, but emotionally, you begin to relax into the truth that life flows, transforms, dissolves, and rebuilds itself in every moment. There is an old tale of two monks walking along a forest path. As they reached a small river, they encountered a woman waiting by the bank, hesitant to cross. One monk lifted her onto his back and carried her across. After they continued walking for several hours, the second monk finally said, "Why did you carry her? We are not supposed to touch women." The first monk replied, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story reveals how the mind clings not just to objects or people but to memories, opinions, judgments, and emotions. You may carry past hurts long after the moment has passed. You may carry fear long after the thread is gone. You may carry guilt long after forgiveness has already taken root. Letting go is not forgetting, it is choosing not to carry unnecessary weight. To transform your mind is to become aware of this subtle grasping. When you feel anxious, notice what you are resisting. When you feel sadness, notice what you fear losing. When you feel stressed, notice what expectation you are holding on to. Buddhist lessons for anxiety emphasize this process of awareness, teaching that anxiety often arises not from what is happening, but from the mind's attempt to control what cannot be controlled. When you stop resisting impermanence, your relationship with fear changes. You begin to live without fear not because fear disappears, but because you see its roots clearly and understand that its power dissolves the moment you stop clinging. Think of your life as a series of breaths. Each breath arises, stays for a moment, and dissolves. You do not cling to each breath. You do not demand that one breath last forever. You accept its coming and going naturally. And because you accept it, you are at ease. What if you approached all experiences this way? What if you allowed emotions to come and go without labeling them as good or bad? What if you allowed relationships to evolve rather than trying to keep them frozen in a single moment? What if you allowed yourself to change, to grow, to outgrow, to release? This is the heart of Buddhist teachings, to flow with life rather than grasping at it. In daily life, impermanence shows itself in countless subtle ways. The morning light changes as the sun rises. The sound of traffic shifts with the hour. Your thoughts drift from one subject to another. Your emotions rise and fall like waves on an endless sea. Even your body, the vessel you inhabit, changes continuously, cells dying, cells being born, breath entering and leaving, heartbeat pulsing in rhythm with life. When you become conscious of this fluidity, you relax into a deeper awareness. You stop trying to make life solid. You realize that the beauty of existence lies in its movement. There is another story, gentle yet profound, of a master who kept a small clay cup on his table. One day, a student asked why the master stared at the cup so often. The master replied, "I have already accepted that this cup is broken." The student, confused, asked why the cup was still there. The master said, "When I drink from it, I appreciate its form, its smoothness, its usefulness. But because I know it will one day break, I do not cling to it. I allow myself to love it fully without fear." This teaching applies to everything you cherish, your relationships, your experiences, your youth, your home, your dreams. To love with awareness of impermanence is to love without fear. To hold gently is to protect your energy without shutting yourself off from the world. When you feel lost, impermanence can become a source of comfort rather than distress. You understand that confusion is temporary, that clarity will arise, that emotional storms will pass. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to sit in this in-between state without trying to force a resolution. When you stop demanding certainty, the heart opens. When you stop rushing toward answers, wisdom slowly emerges. Impermanence becomes your teacher, showing you that life moves in cycles, and each cycle carries you forward, even when you do not realize it. As you walk this path, the gentle courage of embracing impermanence becomes one of your greatest sources of freedom. You learn to let go without resentment, to receive without attachment, to love without fear, to walk without needing to know the final destination. You find peace in the constant flow of life, seeing that every ending makes space for a new beginning, every loss creates room for new insight, every transition invites you to awaken more deeply. This chapter closes with the quiet understanding that impermanence is not something to conquer but something to honor. When you embrace it, you unlock a freedom that cannot be taken from you, the freedom to live fully in each moment, grounded, aware, and deeply at peace. Part 7. The calm that arises when you stop chasing happiness. There is a quiet truth that many people spend their entire lives overlooking. The more you chase happiness, the further it seems to slip away. This insight is woven deeply into Buddhist teachings, and yet it is often misunderstood in the modern world, where people are encouraged to pursue happiness as though it were an object to be obtained, a destination to be reached, or a prize that comes after enough striving. But the Buddha pointed in another direction entirely. He taught that happiness is not something gained from the outside, but something revealed from within when the mind stops grasping, stops running, and stops insisting that life must unfold in a particular way. This chapter explores that deep, subtle calm that fills your heart when you stop chasing happiness and begin instead to cultivate awareness. Imagine walking through a marketplace filled with noise, activity, and vibrant colors. Everywhere you turn, people are trying to sell you something: attention, validation, pleasure, excitement, distraction. If you are not careful, you begin to believe that happiness is hidden among these offerings. You begin to chase achievements, relationships, material comforts, or recognition, thinking that once you obtain them, you will feel complete. But as soon as you grasp one desire, another arises. As soon as you reach one goal, the next appears. This endless striving exhausts the mind and creates a deep undercurrent of anxiety. You may feel as though you are constantly running yet never arriving. This is the nature of desire when left unchecked. It promises fulfillment yet delivers restlessness. In Buddhism for beginners, one of the first teachings introduced is the nature of craving, how the mind attaches itself to what it believes will bring happiness and how this attachment becomes the root of suffering. Craving is not the same as aspiration or healthy desire. Craving is the mental force that says, "I cannot be happy until this happens," or "I cannot be at peace unless this changes." When you believe happiness depends on external conditions, you become vulnerable to everything that shifts: relationships, finances, health, opinions, circumstances. The more fragile your happiness becomes, the more fear begins to shape your decisions. You may feel the subtle tension of constantly trying to hold everything in place, as though the world might collapse if you loosen your grip even slightly. But Buddhist wisdom points to a far more stable foundation. Instead of chasing happiness, the teachings invite you to cultivate presence. Happiness that comes from presence is not dependent on outcomes. It arises when the mind is not tangled in desire or fear, not lost in past regrets or future worries. It arises from the simple awareness of being alive. When you breathe consciously, when you notice the warmth of sunlight on your skin, when you listen fully to another person, when you allow yourself to slow down, happiness emerges naturally, not as a dramatic high, but as a soft, steady contentment that holds you gently from within. To find peace in chaos, you must learn to stop seeking happiness in the chaos itself. You must learn to stop searching for joy in the turbulence of craving. Ancient monks often said that when you stop stirring the water, it becomes clear. The same metaphor applies to your life. When you stop stirring the mind with constant desires, demands, and expectations, a quiet, natural joy begins to rise. This joy does not depend on circumstances. It is not fragile. It does not disappear when things become difficult. It is the kind of joy that remains even in the presence of sadness, the kind of joy that can sit quietly beside grief without being shadowed. There is a story told of a wandering monk who visited a wealthy man. The man said, "I have everything I ever wanted, yet I still feel empty. What more must I gain to finally feel fulfilled?" The monk replied, "You must gain nothing. You must lose the belief that something is missing." This teaching reveals the essence of transforming your mind. The mind constantly imagines that something is missing: the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect moment, the perfect version of yourself. But what if nothing is missing? What if you already possess the capacity for peace right now, hidden beneath layers of craving and self-doubt? When you rest in this understanding, you stop chasing happiness and begin uncovering it. Anxiety often arises from the belief that happiness is fragile, that one wrong decision or one unexpected event could destroy your peace. Buddhist lessons for anxiety gently counter this belief by teaching that true peace does not depend on everything going right. True peace arises from awareness, from the understanding that you can meet whatever appears with steadiness. When you stop demanding that life follows your script, you relieve the mind of immense pressure. You begin to live without fear because you no longer expect the world to be perfect. Instead, you trust your capacity to respond with clarity. In daily life, you may notice that the moments when you feel most drained are often the moments when you are striving hardest. Perhaps you are trying to impress others, trying to achieve more than your body can sustain, trying to force a situation to unfold in your favor, or trying to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. When you stop chasing, your energy begins to return. Protecting your energy becomes a natural practice, not through avoidance, but through awareness. You learn to sense when your efforts arise from craving rather than purpose. You learn to walk away from situations that pull you into unnecessary striving. You learn to rest when your body speaks. You learn to breathe when your mind rushes. There is another ancient tale of a man who spent years searching for a rare jewel that was said to grant happiness. He traveled through forests, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains in search of it. Exhausted and frustrated, he met a hermit who lived in a small hut. The hermit said, "The jewel you seek is in your pocket." The man reached into his pocket and found a gem he had unknowingly carried all along. The story reminds you that the joy you search for externally is often within you already, waiting to be recognized. The more you search outside, the more you overlook what is within. When you feel lost, the instinct is to search harder, to push yourself even more, to demand answers. But Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to stop searching outwardly and turn inward instead. Being lost can be a profound invitation to awaken. When you stop chasing happiness outside yourself, you begin to sense the quiet direction arising from within. You begin to notice the intuitive nudges, the subtle feelings, the gentle clarity that emerges only in stillness. Feeling lost is not a sign that you are failing, it is a sign that you are shifting into a deeper layer of awareness. Picture a lake in the early morning mist. The surface is still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Beneath the surface, fish move silently, plants sway gently, and life continues in quiet motion. When you sit in stillness, your mind becomes like that lake. Even if emotions move beneath the surface, even if thoughts drift through the water, the surface remains calm when undisturbed. This calm is what appears when you stop chasing happiness. You stop stirring the water, and clarity returns. As you cultivate this calm, you begin to understand happiness in a new way. Happiness becomes less about excitement and more about peace. Less about pleasure and more about presence. Less about achieving and more about awakening. You realize that the things you once pursued with urgency now feel less important, and the things you once overlooked, your breath, your senses, your awareness, become the foundation of your joy. This chapter closes with the understanding that happiness cannot be chased, it can only be allowed. When you stop running, when you stop demanding, when you stop searching frantically, you finally make space for happiness to enter. It arrives softly, quietly, like sunlight through a window, illuminating everything it touches without ever needing to be claimed. Let this be your practice, to stop chasing and start awakening. Part 8. The unshakable peace of a mind that returns to the present. There is a moment, subtle yet powerful, when the mind stops wandering into the vast landscapes of memory and imagination and gently settles into the reality of the present moment. In this moment, something extraordinary happens. Fear loosens its grip, anxiety dissolves into softness, and the heart remembers a peace that cannot be found anywhere outside this very breath. This chapter explores the unshakable peace that arises when you learn to return, again and again, to the present moment, one of the most essential practices in Buddhist teachings and one of the most transformative elements of the path. Many people believe that peace must be sought in special conditions, a quiet retreat, a perfect life, a change in circumstances, or the resolution of all problems. But Buddhism for beginners teaches that peace is not something waiting for you in the future. It is already here, woven into the fabric of this exact moment. The difficulty is not in finding peace but in learning to recognize it beneath the layers of thought. When the mind wanders into the past, it becomes entangled with regret, nostalgia, or unresolved emotions. When it projects into the future, it becomes consumed by worry, planning, expectation, and fear. But when the mind returns to the present, these illusions fall away. Imagine sitting beside a river, watching the water flow gently past. The river does not hesitate. It does not hold on to the waves that have already passed or reach anxiously for the waves that have not yet arrived. It simply flows. This is the nature of the present moment, fluid, steady, ever-renewing. But the mind, conditioned by habit, often resists this flow. It clings to the past or rushes toward the future, creating tension and fragmentation within your awareness. To find peace in chaos, you must learn to become like the river, fully here, fully present, fully alive in the unfolding of now. In daily life, you may notice that the mind often feels like a restless traveler. It jumps from one thought to another, from one worry to the next, rarely settling long enough for clarity to emerge. This restlessness is the root of much suffering. When your mind lives everywhere except the present, you become disconnected from the truth of your experience. You may move through the world without really seeing it. You may eat without tasting, speak without listening, breathe without feeling, and live without truly inhabiting your life. Returning to the present moment is not simply a practice, it is a way of reclaiming your existence. There is an ancient story of a monk who was asked to describe the nature of enlightenment in simple words. He replied, "When walking, walk. When eating, eat. When breathing, breathe." His answer may seem almost too simple, yet it reflects the profound wisdom that arises when the mind stops struggling against reality. When you live fully in the present, each moment becomes complete in itself. There is nothing to add, nothing to remove, nothing to escape. This completeness is what transforms the mind. It allows you to live without fear because fear exists only in imagined futures. It allows you to release regret because regret exists only in remembered pasts. Awareness reveals that both are illusions. Buddhist lessons for anxiety revolve deeply around this truth. Anxiety is the mind's reaction to a future that has not yet arrived. It attempts to prepare, protect, predict, and control. But when you return your awareness to the present moment, you interrupt this cycle. You place your attention not on what might happen, but on what is happening right now. Even if the present moment contains discomfort, breathing consciously through that discomfort dissolves the mind's panic. You discover that you can feel intensity without being overwhelmed, that you can feel uncertainty without collapsing into fear. This is the quiet strength of awareness. To transform your mind, you must cultivate the art of pausing. The pause is not an escape, it is a doorway. In the pause, you reconnect with your breath. You notice sensations. You observe your thoughts instead of being ruled by them. You notice tension in your body and soften it gently. Each pause becomes an act of protecting your energy. Instead of reacting impulsively to the world, you respond with clarity. Instead of scattering your awareness into every disturbance, you draw it back to your center. Over time, the mind becomes less reactive, less chaotic, more grounded. Consider the experience of listening to music. If your mind is elsewhere, the music becomes nothing more than background noise. But if you listen fully, the music becomes alive. Every note, every pause, every vibration. The same is true of your life. When you are present, the simplest moments become vibrant. The sound of your breath, the warmth of your hands, the way morning light moves across the room, all of these become gateways into deeper awareness. Life stops feeling like something you must chase, fix, or survive. It becomes something you can inhabit. There is another tale of a young man who went to a teacher and said, "My mind is always anxious. It never rests. I try to stop it, but it keeps wandering." The teacher handed him a cup of tea and said, "Drink this slowly." The man drank, but his mind stayed restless. The teacher said, "You drank the tea, but you did not taste it. How can you expect your mind to be still when you do not allow it to experience anything fully?" This story reveals the importance of mindfulness not as a technique, but as a way of living. When you feel lost, returning to the present becomes even more important. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost teach that clarity does not arise from thinking harder about your problems. Clarity emerges naturally when the mind becomes quiet. When you stop trying to force answers, the answers begin to reveal themselves. The present moment becomes a refuge, a space where confusion softens enough for insight to appear. When you breathe into the feeling of being lost, you discover that lostness itself is a path, one that guides you toward deeper understanding. Returning to the present does not require you to reject the past or ignore the future. It simply invites you to stop living in them. You can learn from the past without being trapped by it. You can plan for the future without fearing it. But you can only live in the present. The present moment is the only place where joy can be felt, where peace can be touched, where transformation can occur. The more you practice returning, the easier it becomes. What once felt like a struggle becomes second nature. Awareness becomes your home. Picture yourself walking slowly through a forest. You feel the earth beneath your feet, the coolness of the air, the scent of leaves and soil. You listen to the distant call of birds, the whisper of the wind through the branches. In this moment, you are fully alive. You are not remembering old conversations or imagining future worries. You are here. And in this here-ness, you discover the unshakable peace that lives beneath every breath. This chapter closes with the understanding that the present moment is not just a practice but a refuge. When the mind learns to rest in the now, you discover a peace that remains with you through all seasons of life. A peace not dependent on circumstances, not shaken by uncertainty, not threatened by fear. A peace that arises from awareness itself, steady, quiet, and eternally present. Part 9. The wisdom of slowing down in a world that moves too fast. There is a quiet truth hidden beneath the rush of modern life, a truth that only reveals itself when you slow down enough to feel the rhythm of your own breath, the weight of your own body, the subtle unfolding of each moment. In a world that urges you to hurry, to achieve, to produce, to react instantly, the act of slowing down becomes a radical expression of wisdom. This chapter explores that wisdom, a gentle, ancient understanding found at the heart of Buddhist teachings, reminding you that slowness is not laziness but clarity, not weakness but strength, not retreat but awakening. Consider how the world currently shakes your life. Notifications, deadlines, demands, expectations, and responsibilities create a constant sense of urgency. Your mind becomes conditioned to rush from task to task, thought to thought, emotion to emotion, without pausing to truly experience anything. Even when you rest, your mind may still race, planning the next step, worrying about the future, replaying the past. This relentless speed fragments your awareness, drains your energy, and narrows your capacity to feel joy or gratitude. You become so focused on arriving at the next moment that you forget to inhabit the moment you are already in. The Buddha often taught that the mind, when restless, becomes blind. It cannot see clearly. It reacts impulsively. It creates suffering where none is necessary. But when the mind slows down, when you breathe consciously, when you walk with awareness, when you speak with intention, you begin to transform your mind. You shift from reacting to responding, from rushing to noticing, from surviving to living. Slowing down does not magically remove challenges, but it gives you the space to meet them with clarity instead of panic. Imagine a small pond in a forest. When the water is stirred, the surface becomes cloudy, and the reflection disappears. But when the water is still, the entire sky becomes visible in its surface. Your awareness is like that pond. When you rush through life, constantly reacting, constantly hurrying, you lose sight of yourself. But when you slow down, even briefly, clarity returns. You see your feelings clearly. You see your thoughts clearly. You see what matters and what does not. This is how Buddhist wisdom begins to awaken within you, not through force, but through presence. One of the most powerful ways to stay calm and positive is to create moments of intentional slowness throughout your day. When you eat, notice the texture and temperature of the food. When you walk, feel the ground supporting your steps. When you speak, allow silence to shape your words. When you breathe, feel the rise and fall of your chest. These are not trivial acts, they are gateways to awareness. Each mindful moment dissolves a layer of anxiety. Each slow breath protects your energy. Each pause between thoughts becomes a refuge from the noise of the world. There is an old story about a student who asked his teacher, "Teach me how to meditate." The teacher replied, "When you walk, walk. When you sit, sit. When you lie down, lie down." The student, confused, said, "But I already do those things." The teacher smiled and said, "No. When you walk, your mind is already 3 steps ahead. When you sit, your thoughts are still running. When you lie down, you are planning tomorrow." To meditate is to do one thing at a time, fully. This teaching reveals how deeply the mind resists simplicity. The mind clings to speed because speed distracts it from facing itself. When you slow down, you begin to find peace in chaos, not because chaos disappears, but because you no longer amplify it with frantic energy. You learn to live without fear because you develop trust in your capacity to respond to life as it unfolds, rather than trying to outrun uncertainty. Slowness teaches you to breathe through discomfort rather than avoid it, to observe your emotions rather than drown in them, to allow thoughts to come and go without becoming entangled. In a fast-moving world, slowing down becomes an act of protecting your energy. You begin to notice the difference between tasks that nourish you and tasks that exhaust you. You become aware of conversations that elevate your spirit and those that drain it. You recognize when your body needs rest and when your mind needs silence. This awareness empowers you to choose, gently and wisely, how you engage with life. There is another story of a monk sweeping the monastery courtyard. A visitor asked him, "Why do you sweep so slowly? Wouldn't it be more efficient to finish quickly?" The monk replied, "If I rush, my body will sweep, but my mind will be elsewhere. If I move slowly, my body and mind move together. I sweep the leaves, and I also sweep my thoughts." This is the essence of mindfulness, the unity of body and mind in each moment. When your actions and awareness align, you feel whole. When you feel lost in life, slowing down becomes even more essential. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost emphasize that rushing only deepens confusion. Clarity does not arise from frantic thinking. Clarity arises from stillness. When you slow down, you allow your inner wisdom to surface. You begin to sense what feels right, what resonates with your heart, what aligns with your well-being. Feeling lost becomes less frightening when you realize you do not need all the answers at once. You need only the next breath, the next step, the next moment lived with awareness. Think of a tree rooted deeply in the earth. It does not rush to grow. It does not panic when the seasons change. It simply stands, breathes, and grows at its own pace. This slowness is not laziness, it is stability. It is wisdom. It is trust in the natural unfolding of life. When you slow down, you too become deeply rooted. You become less reactive to external pressures and more attuned to the subtle movements within your own heart. Slowing down also allows you to notice the beauty you often miss, the way sunlight dances across a wall, the kindness in a stranger's eyes, the stillness between sounds, the softness of your own breath. These small, quiet moments nourish the soul. They remind you that joy is not always found in extraordinary experiences. Sometimes it is found in simply being alive. This chapter closes with the understanding that slowing down is not an escape from life, it is a return to it. When you slow down, you rediscover presence. You rediscover peace. You rediscover yourself. And as you move through the world with this awareness, you begin to experience a gentle transformation. Life becomes less of a race and more of a reflection. You begin to walk, slowly and steadily, along the path of awakening. Part 10. The art of meeting suffering with compassion instead of resistance. There comes a moment in every human life when suffering appears like an unexpected visitor, sitting quietly at the edge of your awareness, waiting to be acknowledged. It may arrive as heartbreak, disappointment, uncertainty, illness, loss, or the subtle ache of loneliness that lingers even when surrounded by people. In these moments, the instinctive reaction is often to resist, to push the pain away, to tighten the body and harden the mind as if bracing might prevent the suffering from entering. But the Buddha taught that resistance is the true source of suffering. Pain is an experience, suffering is what the mind adds to it. This chapter explores the art of meeting suffering with compassion rather than resistance, a practice that lies at the very heart of transforming your mind and finding peace in chaos. Because this chapter falls on one of the marked points of this series, let this be a gentle reminder: if these teachings bring clarity or comfort to your path, you may support this journey by subscribing, liking, or sharing so that others, too, may discover these reflections and find solace in them. And now, let us continue deeply. Imagine holding a tightly closed fist. The more you resist, the more tension builds. The more you try to push discomfort away, the more it presses inwards. This is how the mind reacts to suffering when it believes that pain is something to fight. But ancient Buddhist teachings reveal another way, one that feels counterintuitive yet profoundly liberating. Instead of resisting suffering, you turn toward it with awareness. You observe it gently, as though holding a trembling bird in your hands. You ask the discomfort, "What are you here to teach me?" In doing so, the suffering begins to soften, not because the situation changes, but because your relationship with it transforms. There is a story of a young monk overwhelmed by grief after losing a loved one. He approached his teacher, tears streaming down his face, and said, "I cannot face this pain. It is too heavy." The teacher took him to a quiet lake and asked him to place a handful of salt into the water. The monk did so, and the teacher said, "Taste the water." The monk tasted it and said, "It is still fresh." Then the teacher handed him the same amount of salt and asked him to place it in a small cut. When the monk tasted the water in the cut, it was unbearably salty. The teacher explained, "Your suffering is the same. But if your heart expands, the suffering becomes diluted. The more spacious your awareness, the lighter your pain becomes." This is the lesson of meeting suffering with compassion, expanding your heart rather than shrinking under the weight of pain. To stay calm and positive during difficult times does not mean pretending the pain is not there. It means acknowledging the pain without letting it define you. It means allowing emotions to rise and fall naturally, without clinging to them or pushing them away. Suffering becomes unbearable when you believe it should not be happening, when you compare your experience to what you think life should be. But the moment you accept that suffering is part of the human experience, something shifts. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is the willingness to feel without collapsing into fear. In Buddhism for beginners, one of the first insights you encounter is the truth of dukkha, the reality of suffering as an inherent part of life. But this teaching is not pessimistic. It is compassionate. It acknowledges what you already feel but often try to deny. When you stop pushing away suffering, you gain the strength to transform it. You learn to live without fear, because fear arises from the attempt to avoid inevitable pain. When you stop avoiding pain, fear loses its foundation. There is a gentle exercise often taught in Buddhist meditation. When you feel overwhelmed, place a hand over your heart and breathe deeply into the sensation, not to erase it, but to embrace it. You simply say inwardly, "In this moment, I feel pain. May I hold it with kindness." This act may seem small, but it is profound. It interrupts the cycle of resistance. It opens the heart. It helps you protect your energy by recognizing that fighting your own emotions only deepens your exhaustion. Compassion, even toward your own suffering, is an act of strength. The Buddha once said that holding on to anger is like holding a burning coal and expecting the other person to be burned. But this truth applies not only to anger, it applies to any form of emotional resistance. When you resist sadness, you grip it more tightly. When you resist fear, the fear grows. When you resist uncertainty, you close yourself off from learning. Buddhist wisdom teaches that meeting suffering with compassion is like opening your palm and allowing the coal to fall. The coal still exists, but it no longer burns you. In the midst of suffering, the mind tends to create frightening stories. It imagines worst-case scenarios. It labels the situation as unbearable. It predicts the future based on the intensity of the present emotion. But these stories are illusions. When you return to the present moment, to the rise and fall of your breath, you begin to see that suffering is not a permanent reality, it is a passing experience. Thoughts about suffering often hurt more than the suffering itself. This is why the practice of mindfulness is essential to finding peace in chaos. Mindfulness does not erase pain, but it prevents the mind from adding unnecessary layers of suffering. There is another story of a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "How unfortunate." "Perhaps," the farmer replied. The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it a dozen wild horses. "How fortunate," the neighbors said. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. Later, the farmer's son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the wild horses. "How unfortunate," said the neighbors. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. Soon after, soldiers came to the village to recruit young men for war, but the farmer's son was unable to go because of his broken leg. "How fortunate," said the neighbors. The farmer simply smiled. This story illustrates the deep Buddhist understanding that suffering is never final, that circumstances are always shifting, that what appears to be tragedy may later bring blessings, and what appears to be blessings may bring challenges. Meeting life with compassion rather than resistance means trusting the unfolding of each moment without assuming its meaning too quickly. When you feel lost, suffering often intensifies because your mind desperately seeks answers. But Buddhist reminders when you feel lost encourage you to allow the not knowing, to sit with the uncertainty, to let the fog be the fog. Clarity does not come from demanding answers, it comes from softening into the present moment with acceptance. The more compassion you offer yourself during times of confusion, the quicker clarity arrives. But when you resist confusion, when you believe you should know what to do, you close the door to insight. Meeting suffering with compassion also transforms your relationship with others. You begin to see that everyone around you carries burdens you cannot see. Everyone suffers. Everyone fears. Everyone experiences loss. This recognition softens judgment and opens the heart. You communicate differently. You listen more deeply. You respond with patience rather than irritation. Compassion becomes a way of protecting your energy, not by withdrawing from others, but by engaging with them from a place of understanding rather than emotional reactivity. Picture a candle in a dark room. The candle does not fight the darkness, it simply shines. The candle does not need to overcome the shadows, it only needs to maintain its flame. Compassion works the same way. When suffering arises, compassion becomes the light that prevents the darkness of resistance from overtaking your heart. Compassion stabilizes the mind, calms the breath, and brings you back into alignment with the present moment. In this alignment, suffering becomes manageable, digestible, transformable. This chapter closes with the profound understanding that suffering is not a punishment, nor a failure, nor a sign that you are weak. Suffering is part of being human. But when you meet it with compassion instead of resistance, suffering becomes a teacher. It becomes a doorway into wisdom. It becomes an opportunity to awaken. And if these reflections have supported your journey today, you may gently help this space grow by subscribing, liking, or sharing, so that others seeking light in their darkest moments may find it too. Part 11. Fall asleep to life-changing Buddhist teachings, Zen stories for deep sleep. There is a moment, usually late at night, when the world grows quiet and the noise of responsibilities, worries, and expectations begins to soften. The darkness outside mirrors a darkness within, a space where the mind loosens its grip on the day and the heart becomes more open, more vulnerable, more receptive. It is in these quiet hours that Buddhist teachings often speak most clearly, like a gentle whisper drifting through the stillness. This chapter is written for that moment, guiding you through a slow, soft descent into deep rest, using ancient wisdom and peaceful storytelling to soothe your mind, loosen tension from your body, and invite sleep as naturally as a leaf drifting gently onto calm water. Imagine yourself lying down, the weight of the day slowly melting from your shoulders, your breath deepening with each passing moment. You are safe here. You are supported. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to solve, nothing left to carry. In this space, Buddhist wisdom becomes a lullaby, a soft guide leading you back to your true nature, calm, grounded, open, and free. The stories in this chapter are meant to slow your heartbeat, soften your thoughts, and steady your breathing so that the mind can finally unclench and the spirit can rest. In a small mountain monastery long ago, there lived an old monk known for his serene presence. Every night before sleep, he would walk to the edge of the forest, sit beneath a tall cedar tree, and gaze at the moon reflected in a still pond. When younger monks asked why he did this, he replied, "Because when the mind quiets enough to see its reflection in still water, sleep comes as naturally as the moon drifting through the night sky." This story teaches that calmness is not something to force. It arises when the mind settles, when thoughts slow down, when awareness softens into the present moment. Let your breathing slow with this image. Inhale softly, letting the breath fill the body like warm light. Exhale gently, letting tension fall away. As your breath deepens, imagine yourself beside the same pond, the moonlight shimmering across the surface, the air cool and steady. You feel no urgency, no fear, no pressure, just the quiet pulse of nature around you. This moment is your refuge. This image opens the door to your inner stillness. There is a Zen story of a traveler who came to a monastery seeking rest. He was exhausted, not from physical labor, but from the weight of his thoughts. His mind raced with regrets from the past, anxieties about the future, and constant self-judgment. The master handed him a cup of tea and poured until it overflowed, spilling onto the ground. Startled, the traveler exclaimed, "Stop! The cup is full." The master replied, "Yes. And so is your mind. You cannot receive rest until you empty yourself of everything you are holding." This teaching is especially powerful before sleep. Often, you try to sleep while the mind is overflowing, with unfinished conversations, lingering fears, to-do lists, and unresolved emotions. But by releasing these thoughts, even for a moment, you create space for rest to enter. Imagine your thoughts now like leaves floating on a river. Each time a thought appears, place it gently on the surface of the water and watch it drift away. You do not need to analyze the thought or chase it. You simply set it down and allow the river to carry it. One thought drifts away. Then another. Then another. The more you let go, the calmer the river becomes. This practice helps you find peace in chaos by slowly untangling your mind from the noise of the day. There is another story of a monk who asked his teacher why he continued meditating even after attaining enlightenment. The teacher smiled softly and said, "Because even a clear lake gathers dust, and even a wise mind gathers thoughts." Meditation is the act of clearing the dust, gently, without force. As you fall asleep, imagine that each breath clears a layer of dust from your mind. Inhale clarity. Exhale tension. Inhale peace. Exhale fear. The dust is not the enemy. It is simply part of being human. As your body relaxes more deeply, allow your awareness to sink into your breath. Notice how the inhale cools the inside of your nose, how the exhale warms it. Notice the rising and falling of your chest. Notice the soft heaviness that spreads through your arms and legs. With every breath, the body grows heavier, as though sinking gently into a warm bed of soft earth. This heaviness is a sign that the body trusts the moment, that it feels safe to surrender, that your nervous system is loosening its grip. Another Zen tale speaks of a master who instructed his students to sleep as though they were clouds floating across the sky, light, unburdened, and open. Clouds do not try to sleep. They do not prepare themselves or worry about how long it will take. They simply drift. Let your mind drift now, slowly, softly. Do not try to fall asleep. Simply allow yourself to drift. As you relax deeper, reflect on this gentle truth. Anxiety cannot survive in fully present awareness. When you stop feeding the mind with fear and instead rest your attention on the breath, the body shifts naturally into a state of calm. Buddhist lessons for anxiety emphasize this again and again. The mind cannot panic and relax simultaneously. By grounding your awareness in the sensations of the present moment, you interrupt the cycle of panic and invite the nervous system to settle. You protect your energy not by fighting the thoughts but by softening around them, letting them pass like distant echoes. There is a final Zen story for this chapter. A student asked his teacher, "What is the secret to peaceful sleep?" The teacher replied, "Let go of the day before the day lets go of you." This teaching invites you to release every moment of the day with compassion. Release every mistake. Release every conversation. Release every regret. Release every expectation. Release everything you wished had gone differently. Release even your desire for perfect sleep. You do not need to carry any of it into the night. Allow yourself now to drift through the soundless dark, guided gently by your own breath. Each inhale expands your awareness. Each exhale draws you deeper into rest. You are safe. You are supported. You are whole. There is nothing to fear. Nothing left undone. Nothing demanding your attention. You are simply here, breathing softly, drifting like a cloud, held by the quiet wisdom of the night. If your eyes are heavy, allow them to close. If your thoughts grow faint, let them fade. Sleep approaches like a warm tide. Let it carry you. Let it hold you. Let it wash over you in gentle waves. And as you drift, know this, your awakening continues even in rest. In sleep, your mind heals. In stillness, your heart renews. In silence, your spirit returns to its natural clarity. Rest now. Breathe. Drift. And let these teachings carry you into peaceful, nourishing sleep. Part 12. The silent rising of wisdom at the end of the path. There comes a time on every inner journey when words begin to quiet, when the mind softens into a deeper stillness, and the heart opens itself to a wider truth that cannot be grasped by thinking alone. This final chapter is not a conclusion, because the path of awakening never truly ends. Instead, it is a gentle resting point, a place where the wisdom cultivated through reflection, presence, and awareness can settle like snowflakes on the surface of a calm winter lake. This chapter is the silent rising of wisdom at the end of the path, a moment where everything you have learned becomes less of an idea and more of a living presence within you. Imagine yourself at the edge of a great forest at dusk. Behind you lie the countless steps you have taken, moments of clarity and confusion, peace and turmoil, effort and surrender. Ahead lies an open field illuminated by the fading light. You pause at the threshold, feeling the vastness of the moment. Nothing needs to be resolved. Nothing needs to be accomplished. Awareness expands naturally when the mind stops insisting that it must move somewhere else. This is the essence of Buddhist teachings. Awakening does not come from arrival, it comes from seeing clearly where you are right now. Throughout life, you have been taught to chase answers, chase peace, chase identity. But at the end of this chapter, the quiet truth becomes clear: the more you chase, the more distant everything feels. The moment you stop running, wisdom rises on its own. Like mist lifting from a valley, insight emerges when the heart relaxes into presence. You begin to understand the meaning of how to stay calm and positive, not by controlling reality, but by meeting it with softness and awareness. You learn to find peace in chaos not by eliminating turmoil, but by refusing to collapse beneath it. You discover what it means to live without fear, not by erasing uncertainty, but by walking into it with trust. There is an ancient Zen story of a monk who spent decades seeking enlightenment. He traveled far, practiced diligently, questioned everything. One day, exhausted and discouraged, he returned to his monastery. As he boiled water for tea, the lid of the pot suddenly rattled. In that moment, something within him shifted. He realized that enlightenment had never been somewhere else. It had always been here, in the sound of water, in the steam rising, in the small details he had overlooked during his search. The world had not changed, his way of seeing had. Wisdom arises when you stop expecting it to arrive as a lightning strike and allow it to reveal itself in simple presence. In the same way, the deepest Buddhist lessons for anxiety do not require extraordinary effort. They invite you to return again and again to awareness. When anxiety arises, you look at it with gentle curiosity instead of fear. You breathe through it, allowing the body to soften. The more compassion you offer your inner experience, the more anxiety loses its power to dominate your mind. Protecting your energy becomes a natural result of approaching life with presence. You learn when to engage and when to step back. When to listen and when to rest. When to speak and when silence is the wiser path. In this final reflection, imagine yourself walking slowly through a field of tall grass. The wind moves softly, brushing against your skin. Your breath follows the rhythm of the breeze. With each step, you feel the ground supporting you. There is no rush, no pressure, no past to replay, no future to anticipate. You are simply here, resting inside the fullness of now. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost begin to echo gently within you. You are not lost when you feel lost. You are simply in a moment where the next step has not yet revealed itself. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. Awakening is not a dramatic event. It is a softening, a returning, a quiet realization that you are already whole. Everything you sought along the path, clarity, peace, courage, stability, compassion, lives within you. These reflections simply help you uncover them. The truth was never far away. It was hidden beneath layers of habit, thought, and fear. Now, as the path widens into silence, you carry what you have awakened into the rest of your life, not as ideas, but as lived presence. Picture yourself now sitting beneath a large tree at the center of the field. The sky above you deepens into twilight. The world grows quiet, but your awareness remains bright. You feel gratitude rising naturally from within, not because everything is perfect, but because you see clearly. You understand impermanence not as loss but as movement. You understand suffering not as punishment but as a doorway. You understand presence not as an escape but as a return home. In this final moment, allow everything to soften. Let your breath deepen. Let your thoughts settle. Let your heart expand like the open sky. You have reached the end of this chapter, but not the end of your journey. Wisdom is alive within you, constantly unfolding. Every moment is a chance to awaken again. Every breath is a step along the path. Every experience, even the painful ones, can lead you back to yourself. Rest here for a moment longer. Feel the quiet truth settling into your being. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more must be said. You are already where you need to be. And from this silence, the next step of your awakening will naturally arise.